A TriMet driver becoming an unlikely hero. He stepped up when a man needed an emergency trip to the hospital and no ambulances could come to his aid.
Yeah, our reporter Lise Haas broke this story Monday, shedding light on the harsh realities of a paramedic shortage here in Multnomah County. With no ambulances available to get to the Lentz neighborhood on New Year's Eve, Portland Fire and Rescue made the call to use the TriMet bus to transport that patient to the hospital.
I thought of my family and the times I've drove my father to the hospital. For the same reason. When my father was sick with a heart attack, I was the one who drove him to the hospital, and it was exactly the same. He needed help, and I helped him. Nothing big.
That was Elise's interview with the TriMet bus driver just last night, and representatives with AMR say due to a shortage of nearly 60 paramedics, they suggest temporarily allowing a switch from the 2 paramedic requirement to 1 paramedic and 1 EMT system in Multnomah County. And Elise has really been tracking the AMR staffing shortage for months now, including an in-depth report on Multnomah County's whole paramedic system.
Yeah, she's learning of other situations where firefighters had to improvise when transporting people to the hospital. And Elise, how is this impacting just public safety in general?
I mean, it's gambling at best, it's life-threatening at worst, and I'm also learning about more situations where a 1-year-old fell and was in critical condition, and another where a man was having a stroke. And these are the exact situations where every second counts.
Portland Fire and Rescue recently faced a critical situation when responding to a 911 call involving a seriously hurt 1-year-old, but no ambulances were available to help.
What we were seeing on scene was extremely traumatic incident where the child needed immediate transport and immediate attention.
Isaac McLennan was on that critical call. His crew decided to transport the toddler to the ER in their fire truck.
Fire trucks are not suited for transport. It's not well lit. There's not a lot of room to work, but thankfully, myself and the rest of the crew, we got creative and we did everything we could to help this kid.
McLennan reports around 24 other similar situations. In October, we even told you how firefighters rushed a man who was having a stroke to the hospital while in their big rig.
Fire department showed up because there was no ambulance available.
Brett Kovar tells us if firefighters had waited for an ambulance, he'd likely be dead or severely disabled. The hospital staff was able to get him the clot-busting drugs in the nick of time.
Literally, they grabbed a wheelchair, rolled him into the ER, and we all took one look at him and oh, we know what's happening. And the team was just able to spring into action with no warning that he was coming.
As we've been reporting for months, Multnomah County requires AMR to place 2 paramedics on ambulances. Other nearby counties require 1 paramedic and 1 EMT. It's this issue at the heart of the ongoing dispute between AMR and the county over response time solutions.
It's really, it's an issue that needs to be addressed, and we cannot delay. People in this community are not safe because ambulances are constantly not available.
He says politics and profits can't be prioritized over people's safety.
We all live in this community, and we need our elected officials to know that we're paying attention and we are concerned about our own safety. And they need to hear that. We need to contact them and let them know that, this is unacceptable. We need ambulances in our community.
Portland is a major city, McLennan says, so it's time to start acting like one.
Today, I also took the time to analyze the ratio of non-emergency, which are called Code 1, to emergency calls, which are referred to as Code 3, that AMR has responded to in the past 2 years. So take a look at this. Paramedics emphasize that Code 1 calls that are numbering around 5,000 per month do not demand their specialized skills and could be handled by 2 EMTs. On the other hand, the very serious and time-sensitive Code 3 calls are averaging about 400 per month. They do require paramedic expertise. And they tell me that the influx of these non-emergency calls is really causing paramedics to be tied up in situations that don't necessitate their care, leading to the unavailability during these critical moments that I was just telling you about in my story. And on top of all of that, we also know that, like you said before this, that AMR is short 60 paramedics in Multnomah County right now.
Okay, it just seems, you just showed us those figures, 5,000 calls, really not life emergencies. Why couldn't you have, a paramedic and an ENT for those calls and then save the 2 paramedic system for the 400 calls? It seems like the county would look at that and say, that's a slam dunk. Why don't we do a two-tiered system like that?
Yeah, so Seattle kind of has a two-tiered system, and I'll tell you, the paramedics that I talked to, they're not really in favor of the 1-1 system, which is one paramedic, one EMT that AMR has been advocating for. They'd like to see to stay working alongside another paramedic and then have, you know, it's split up to have EMTs on some of those rigs responding to those less threatening calls, two paramedics on another rig to respond to those critical calls. I asked AMR yesterday, you know, what do you think about that? And they said that they're open to that idea too. So really at this point, it's a matter of what's the county willing to do in a crisis? And then out of those two options that they have right now, which one of them is most realistic for fixing the immediate problem right now about getting those ambulances to people when they're in emergency and being able to do that within a couple of, a weeks to a month?
Well, those are pretty strong words by your fire official there saying the county officials need to act. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what they have to say.
All right. Thanks, Elise.